History of the Crimson War, Part 1. The Crimson War began after the end of the Old Age, when the Dire Council, which had mercilessly ruled for over 6,000 years, collapsed due to economic instability and constant pressure from its citizens to disband. The council had kept the people pinned down and regulated for so long that a strong resentment towards government rule had formed. This hatred is what sparked in the beginning of the War of the Dire Council re-established itself several times, but each attempt was crushed by its former citizens. Historical records show that the council attempted reformation 7 times. Each attempt failed worse than the last, and hundreds of lives were lost each time. After 116 years of bloodshed between the failing council and its rebellious citizens, the Dire Council finally disappeared completely. The Crimson War did not end here. Without any sort of government rule, society repressed to a state of barbarianism. People left the crumbling lawless cities and formed numerous tribes that lived in dirt huts and worshipped pagan gods. These tribes constantly clashed with pro-government groups, which led to a loss of over 1 million lives, and inspired the name for which this area of no government and barbarianism is called the Crimson Age. Eventually, those sparse pro-government groups formed together into a strong union which eventually became known as the Supremacy. At this point, about 700 years had passed since the Dire Council collapsed and government rule became a topic of campfire stories. The Supremacy was ready to take the place of the fallen council. Of course, the disdain for government still lingered, and people didn't mind killing those who advocated for it. Unfortunately for those who fought against the government rule, the Supremacy was stronger than anything they had faced since the existence of the Dire Council. They built an army out of its large member base and began infiltrating the thousands of tribes that existed throughout the land. It only took around 50 years for the Supremacy to impose its new rule on over half of these tribes. The other half joined together and built a giant army to ward off the coming soldiers of the Supremacy. When the two sides finally met, the largest and bloodiest battle of the Crimson War occurred in the valley below this memorial site. 4 million soldiers lost their lives over a 17-month period. When the dust finally settled, the Supremacy claimed victory. The battle wiped out many of the tribes, and those that remained were forced to accept the Supremacy as the new ruling government of the land.